The coldest air of the winter season so far is moving in, and we have a little bit of work to do with some precipitation for later tonight into part of Wednesday. And of course, we've got frost and freezes all over the place. The west, for the most part, is nice, but there's some changes going on there too in the northwest. We'll talk about all of this and much more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Halloween, October 31st, 2023. Brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code I want a weather station, you'll get
10% off.
And that you shall.
Yes.
Yes. So I saw, see, I don't do rumors, Joe. I could have said I heard a rumor, but that would put me in the same category as those who sit at bars, in bars where they sit around talking about weather, and I'm not part of that crowd. However, I did see your forecast, which indicated that some sleet or wet snow could mix in north of our favorite highway, 287, in southern Westchester County. I think you will not. Isn't it true, Mr. Rayo, that you put snow and sleet in the forecast for tomorrow? Isn't it true that you put it in for areas north of 287?
Yes, it is true. And I did not mention anything about accumulation, although I went on Les Plumes.
The plume de la Brioski. Yes. What about the plumes? I didn't even look at them.
Les Plumes actually is saying for Poughkeepsie or whatever, they might be like a few tenths of an inch of accumulation, although I doubt very much if it's going to accumulate on anything more than colder surfaces, if it happens at all.
Well, we do have the warm ground, Joe.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, the Poconos today, their normal first snow date is October 26th, so they only missed it by 5 days. But they had some flurries this morning, and I think Chuck Cardillo, I don't know if he's on the chat board. He had a coating. He's up at 3,000 feet in the Catskills, but he had a nice little coating of snow this morning. So it's possible.
It's pushing more and more toward that time of the year now, and I'm only at 500 feet. But give me another month, and I'm sure that I'll be joining all of those who are at the higher elevations, like yourself, and the snowblower. I got to figure out when I can. I drained the snowblower of gas at the end of the season. I don't want to fill it up now because we're not expecting any significant snowfall. But I got to figure out, maybe soon I'm going to have to put gas in just to test the darn thing out.
Well, that would be a wise decision on your part.
Yes, it would.
Did you put the stabilizer? I mean, if you forget to drain the gas, you could just put stabilizer in. That usually works.
Well, I always put stable. That's a name. You can get this at your local
AutoZone,
storm or whatever like that. You pour it in the gas, and it helps to stabilize and lengthen the time the octane is. But in any case, I do that every time. And one thing that always seems to work when I have a tough time getting the darn thing to start, actually two things. It's something called Mechanic in a Bottle, and also Seafoam, believe it or not. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Seafoam, but that too will also help kickstart your engine after it being dormant for a number of weeks or a number of months. So
yeah,
we'll see.
We will see. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and welcome to those of you who are watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show in the background and not on the chat board, but we are certainly open. Our door is always open to having more people on the chat board and becoming part of the conversation that occurs here Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, Joe and I take those 2 days off unless there's a storm going on, in which case we usually will let you know by Wednesday or Thursday whether we're going to be on for a Friday or a Saturday. We have no plans to do that this week because honestly, those 2 days off, Johnny Carson did it, for years, 5 days a week. Then it went down to four. Then it went down to three, and then he had a million weeks of vacation a year. But you get burned, 5 days a week doing the show, especially if there's not a whole lot of weather going on. Um, it kind of burns you out a little bit. So we like to take those 2 days to just sort of take a deep breath. And of course, you could always follow on my YouTube channel. There's uh, Weather in 5, which I try to do every day, and Weather in a Minute, which I try to do every day. In case you don't have 5 minutes, you have a minute, and
Well,
you can
the
take a look at the
irony
important things that are going on.
the irony of what you just mentioned is that in our younger days we used to chomp at the bit for a major storm, and we would hope that we would get something significant. And of course, that would mean that we would be working more than 5 days. We might be working 6 or even 7 straight days, but we wanted it because we were big snow lovers. And toward the end of our television careers, the one thing that we dreaded more than anything else is to look at the maps and say, oh my God, a major storm, snowstorm, something's coming our way on the weekend, because we know
We'd get called in.
that we were going to get called in on our weekend, and that's the
Yeah.
last thing that we wanted to see happen. And that happened more than once to us, and I'm so happy that I don't need to worry about that
No,
anymore.
you know what? We're at this stage. I'm kind of agnostic about it. Yeah, I don't. I don't wish these things. Not that it doesn't matter if you wish them or not. It's not as if your magic words and thoughts can suddenly create reality. Because if that were the case, we would be retired. We would be retired a long time ago on some island in the Bahamas that we would own. But
Yes.
uh, I just find that when there's weather going on, I, which makes total sense. There's more to talk about. There's more to discuss. There's more intrigue on the maps. When it's a zonal flow and it's 5 days a week of dry weather, and like we've seen these longer stretches during the last month or so, it's kind of hard to fill an hour.
Yes, it is. You go through everything, and soon with the hurricane season winding down, it's only about a month away from the end of the season. We will have one less thing to talk about and one less thing to fill the hour with. So
Right.
there you go.
All right. Well, oddly enough, and I just, I kind of look at this in a way that, in terms of the longer term, to see something like this, where this is a situation where you actually, with a little bit of maneuvering here of one short wave that is spinning now through the Great Lakes, and you could see the well-defined rotation there of that upper low southeast. If this had timed out a bit differently, if that short wave was a little, I don't know that it would necessarily have had to been a bit deeper, but if it was a little faster, where it would have gotten involved with this subtropical jet that we have streaming up along the old frontal boundary and a low developing offshore, this could have actually turned out to be a fairly interesting storm system. Which, going back about a week ago, at least the European model was kind of hinting that that was a possibility. But now as we come into reality, we see that the systems are too far apart for that Great Lakes trough to have a real impact on the system that is in the eastern part of the United States. But there is some action going on with respect to clouds that have backed northwestward now, and that moisture sort of streaming there. We've got some colder air that's moved in, but the real cold air is back with that upper trough. So we're going to probably see, I think, coastal areas certainly, and maybe even some inland spots tomorrow, because when that upper trough starts to get involved, you're probably going to have some instability stuff that's going to develop in the mix too. We're going to have, there's going to be some light rain that's going to back northwestward tonight into coastal New Jersey, into Long Island, maybe even a little bit further north than that, into southern New England and up by you in the Hudson Valley. But it's not going to amount to much in terms of total precip.
I should also point out today is the 31st anniversary, believe it or not, of an intense nor'easter, which was made later famous by Sebastian Junger's book, The Perfect Storm, which brought gusty winds here in the New York tri-state area, 30 to 40 miles an hour, but stayed far enough offshore that New York City received just a trace of rain. It was a whole different story, though, for folks who lived in Boston or on Cape Cod and the islands, where it really was a tremendous storm. And of course, made even worse for the folks who were on the boat, the Andrea Gale. If you saw the movie, you understand what I'm talking about. That was 31 years ago, and it was, if I recall correctly, Joe, it was a major short wave, a real digger, so to speak, dropping through the Great Lakes into the Northeast, which coalesced with a hurricane, Hurricane Gracie, Hurricane Grace, I should say. Gracie was
Well,
another.
that was inside a deep upper low that actually started out somewhere east of Newfoundland and kind of back and it backed southwestward. It was a very very bizarre, that's known also as the Halloween storm. Long Island got a lot of coastal flooding from that.
Yeah, yeah, and we landlubbers. I mean, at the time I was living in Levittown, Long Island. I mean, we've been, you're looking at the maps and you're hearing about all the, well, what are they talking? It's no big deal. But if you lived along the coastline, you saw those waves, you saw the swells that were crashing onshore or whatever. And if, again, people who lived further to the north and east of New York City, they certainly felt it with all of the rain and all the winds and everything else. But that, again, became a great novel, and it also became a great movie. And that was, again, 31 years ago. So who's to say, Joe, that you just mentioned, if that system to the west had, maybe teleconnected a little bit quicker or whatever, we might have been talking about a major storm this Halloween, but it didn't turn out. It was not to be.
No, and Matthew Howe pointing out that this is the 32nd anniversary for the Halloween storm in Minnesota, where they got 20 inches of snow in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. So everybody, I think, probably has a Halloween storm in their history somewhere. If you look up in the upper left, you can see that there's a bit of an animal system that's off the Pacific Northwest coast that's heading eastward. That's going to bring in some heavy rains into the Northwest for the next 7 days, and we'll show you what WPC has to say about that. But in the meantime, as we look at the radar, there is rain. There's a band of rain offshore. It's starting to see a few echoes with some precipitation aloft in parts of coastal and southern New Jersey. So there's that. But the band itself is just sort of this. It's like a ruler almost. Just it's pretty even edged on both sides, just kind of streaming there northeastward. Sort of a good representation of that subtropical stream of moisture. Then it tails off with some showers aloft in eastern North Carolina and South Carolina, then dying out completely when you get to Georgia. We've got the upper low that's producing some rain and snow showers around the Great Lakes. Looks like the twist of that upper low is centered somewhere in southwestern Michigan as it moves east and southeast. And there's some bands of rain and snow in western New York. Actually, there probably will be some snow, accumulating snow, thanks to some lake effect and the instability from this upper low for tomorrow in parts of central New York and maybe even into north central and northwest Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and I even here in the immediate Hudson Valley area, again north of 287, and again north of 287, the elevation is higher. It's a more hillier terrain, and obviously a bit colder. And it would not be surprising if we saw whatever rain showers or even spotty light rain, mix with or even change over to wet snow before this is all over said and done. I think we'll be done with precipitation everywhere by about 11 a.m. to 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'll begin to clear things out, and then the real cold begins to move in later tomorrow and into tomorrow night. And Joe, I think in some of the coldest spots, we may be looking at temperatures down in the upper or even the middle 20s come daybreak on Thursday morning.
Well, I have the digital forecast map from the Weather Service. Now, tonight, the issue is the fact that there's clouds. Now, if you go far enough northwest of the coast where the cloud may be thinner or even partially clear. Here we will see upper 20s and low 30s. And it's one of those odd situations where the greatest chance for anything below 32 is more to the southwest than it is to the northeast. But you can see most temperatures everywhere else overnight are in the upper 30s to around 40 near the coast, to low 30s in some inland spots, but not many places below freezing here. You got to go west of I-81 almost to get into the 20s. But you're right. Thursday morning is a different story, and a lot of 20s everywhere, and even down near the coast, we've got and in some of the warmer urban areas, Washington forecasting a low of 32, Philadelphia 32. Now they get 37 that you see around New York City is LaGuardia, so Central Park will probably be, I don't know, 32, 33, depending on what kind of wind there is and how much cloud cover. And on Long Island, it's mostly middle 30s, but that could be a degree or two high, depending on one thing or another. And the only other, the Thursday night into Friday morning might be a radiation night, so that's going to be a little tricky. As far as that's one of those nights where the urban centers probably stay closer to 40, and you get some of these cold spots where you get some of these off the wall lows, which will rebound quickly once we get into Friday afternoon. That's one thing that is going to happen. As the core of this cold air pulls out, we're going to see temperatures bounce higher, back to about where they should be for this time of year by the time we get to the weekend. But we're not going back to 80 this time around. Just back to where we should be for this time of year.
Now, this is interesting that the National Weather Service at Upton had a freeze watch posted for Orange County for tonight. But I've just noticed now that that is no longer in effect. And in fact, there is a freeze watch, but it has been posted for lower Westchester, for Fairfield, parts of Fairfield County in Connecticut. The freeze watch goes all the way down to the Bronx border in southern Westchester. And also there's a freeze watch for northwestern New Jersey, but no freeze watch for Orange County for tonight, and none for areas. And that freeze watch is not, incidentally, is for tomorrow night, not for tonight.
Right.
But what it tells me, Joe, is that I guess the National Weather Service just decided that the growing season is over for Orange County, Rockland, northern Westchester, my zone, Putnam County, because certainly we're going to see temperatures. We're going to have a hard freeze, I think, in many areas tomorrow night. But there's no watch. I guess they just figure, well, it's all over. It's all done. They had a frost warning, a frost advisory last night. We never did get frost. I said that because we had temperatures this morning didn't bottom out anywhere lower than 36 at my house. But we had too many clouds last night, a bit of a breeze after midnight. But I think this is the implication that the growing season is over for Orange and Rockland and northern Westchester, Putnam, Sullivan, Dutchess, Ulster. But there is a freeze watch south of 287 for lower Westchester, and again for southwestern Connecticut. Not yet for New York City, but we're getting there. And
also for all of New Jersey, southeast and south central PA, for Maryland, for Delaware, for eastern Virginia, eastern North and South Carolina, central and south parts of South Georgia, southeastern Alabama. We do actually have freeze warnings for southwest Virginia, some of the southern counties in West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, Tennessee, the northern part of Georgia, including me. We have a freeze warning for tonight. Most of Alabama and Mississippi except the south, half of Louisiana, and kind of snaking back into northeast and central Texas. And it doesn't mean that that's the only areas that are going under 32, because these are sort of, just most people don't realize this, but freeze and frost, anything regarding frosts and freezes, those are one and done type advisories. Once you get the frost or once you get the freeze, you're not getting another warning. If you miss the first warning to take your plants in, you're not getting a second chance. That's pretty much how it works. Once it happens, you're done with it. And other than that, we've got a few winter weather advisories around the lake shores of Michigan. Actually, I think Chicago might be under a winter weather advisory. Let me take a look. Let's see.
You mentioned, by the way, Joe, all of New Jersey, but actually that's not really true.
Yeah, the northeastern counties aren't in it.
I mean, like Western Bergen County, Passaic County is not in it. Um, I think a part of Essex County, New Jersey. I mean, 90% of New Jersey is under a freeze watch, but those places I just mentioned, those counties I just mentioned, are not. So I don't know why, whether or not they don't think it's going to get below freeze. Maybe in those areas they've had a freeze or frost, and they consider the growing season over there as well.
Yep. Winter weather advisories are up for Gary, Indiana, for Chicago, Illinois, for Waukegan, and on the Wisconsin side for Kenosha. And let's see further north. Does it include Milwaukee? Yes, it includes Milwaukee. So let's see what exactly are they doing here with regards to. All right, so I lost it. Hang on, let me go. I gotta find it again. Here we go. So let's see what they're doing because they had the actual forecast for Chicago says heavy snow and blustery. So let's see what it is. It's 34 at Midway right now. Snow showers mainly before 5 a.m. Some thunder is possible with lows around 30. Northwest winds to 20 to 25, decreasing to 15 to 20 after midnight. Gusts could be as high as 40. Total nighttime snow accumulation of less than an inch. So there you have it.
All that for less than an inch.
All that for less than an inch. Just want to see what they got just for laughs. Waukegan, which is up near the Wisconsin line. Light snow there right now in 34. The visibility's 5 miles. 1 to 2 inches they're forecasting for that for them. And we'll check Milwaukee just to see what they're doing. They actually have a special marine warning out for in Lake Michigan there. Uh, Less than an inch for Milwaukee. They have a special marine warning up uh, for the coastal waters from just north of Sheboygan all the way down to just south of Kenosha with what's going on. And in fact, if we just go back to the radar, we could take a look here. And you can see there actually, yeah, this were a little deeper into November, maybe if it was a little bit colder. There's some hefty looking cells for an upper low here, coming out of Lake Michigan and moving southwestward, coming inland into the southeastern corner of Wisconsin and northeastern parts of Illinois. So they're just under this upper low, and they're doing well. The north are going to do well relative to the time of year. The northwest is quiet at the moment on the radar, but that's going to change with what's offshore. Should acknowledge, by the way, that the chairman, Scott Briller, first to hit the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Scott, for hitting Super Chat. And he says, for what it's worth, since 1869, Central Park has had 13 Novembers with at least 3 inches of snow. 9 of the 13 finished the year with above normal snowfall. So there's that. There's
And,
that little piece of data.
It's been 5 years now since we had that crazy setup in mid-November, November 15th of 2018. The what I call the Governor Murphy, everybody on emergency because they didn't do anything to the roads, and so nobody could get home for 5 hours.
Right, because it was a heavy, wet snow that fell in a short period of time.
Right.
There's the big rains for the Pacific Northwest, Joe. Several to many inches. They've got some 5 to 10 inch little orange areas there highlighted in parts of southwestern Oregon, northwestern California, also in northwestern Oregon and in southwestern Washington. A few patches there of as much as 10, and a fairly extensive area of 4 to 5 inches plus. So they're looking for a lot of rain. And up in the mountains in central and northern Idaho, several inches of liquid. Now, there is going to be some snow with that, but WPC is not really going hog wild with this with regards to the snowfall there. They've got a couple of a couple of small areas here. This is from tonight through Friday night. Probability of at least 2. And you can see it here. I'm just going to make it get rid of the opacity so it'll stand out a bit more. So really, it's up more on the Canada side where there's a high probability for some heavy snows. Also into northwestern Wyoming, I guess it's some of the higher mountains there. And in the long range, and this forecast came out at, let's see, that's at 16. So they've got a couple of patches up here in the northwest. We get the state boundaries on so we can see. Um, there you go. Northwestern Wyoming showing a high probability of relatively high probability in the darker green of 30 to 50% for at least three, and then patches of 10 to 30 here and there. Not a big snow producer, this will be. Because all the cold air has been coming into the eastern part of the United States. There's not a whole lot of cold air that's happening in the west. And that's it. But I wanted to at least start using these maps, Joe, because we're getting, closer, so I get a little practice in. Northwestern Wisconsin into the upper peninsula of Michigan and the northern part of the lower peninsula has a 10 to 30% chance for at least three. This is next Monday into Tuesday. Wait a minute, I got the dates wrong here. Hold on. No, the dates are right. I'm sorry. This is November. So for November, Tuesday, November 7th. They've got snow indicated also north of the New York State and the main Canada line in southeastern Canada, where they're indicating areas, fairly large areas of 10 to 30% probability for at least 2 or 3 inches of snowfall. And
election day is when this year? November.
it's a week from today, the 7th.
Man, it's already a seventh day. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Boy. All right.
We have another tip jar hitter, and it's a generous tip jar hit. I've got to get to it. Where is it? Where is it? Up there it is. It's from Anup Patel Vlogs. I've been watching you guys for years. I always watch your forecast before I fly. Got to get the most accurate forecast. Thank you so much, by the way. Thank you for the kind words and the nice tip in the tip jar. Very much appreciated. Thank you. That again, Anup Patel Vlogs.
And we did mention the fact that the chairman is also get the tip jar tonight as well, and we thank him for that as well.
Yes. Our daily check of the NAO shows it going to the neutral line on today's forecast based on the 0Z runs of the GFS on the AND samples. So there's a big spread. There's some of them that go up as high as +1. There's some of them that go as low as -1. There's actually a couple of members that get down to -2. So there you go. A lot of variability, though. There's like half of them are above it, half of them are below it. Probably is a good indicator of the fact that the model doesn't seem to know what to do with all of this going forward. And if you look at all the other models, there's all sorts of different solutions in the long range with regards to weather systems that are going to be coming out during next week, and we'll get to that. So let's first off, let's take care of what's going on right now. So there's your nice big high. Actually, Joe, there's very little going on except for around the Great Lakes and this little stick of moisture that's along the East Coast. The rest of the country tonight is dry, and you've got a strong high in Kansas. There's a high that's analyzed up in northern Vermont. But you can see how the surface is. If that shortwave was a little faster and further east to go and interact with that system that's off the southeast coast, this certainly could have turned out to be a very different forecast for tomorrow other than light rain. But
right.
It goes out. The core of the cold air moves to the coast by the time we get to Thursday afternoon. So as we said, we'll see our temperatures bottom out Thursday morning. Then we'll start to bounce up. We'll also start to see in the northwest during the day tomorrow the first round of heavy rains coming in. A little bit of snow there up in northernmost Idaho and in southwestern Canada. In the east, it's a west-southwest flow that starts for the weekend, but it's we don't have a big ridge in the eastern part of the United States, so the warm-up will be definitely limited. And here comes a low that moves across the northern lakes with some rain and some snow on the Canada side. The cold front with that doesn't make it the second low, there's a second low that's behind this that goes into upstate New York on the GFS and brings some hefty accumulating snows next Tuesday up in central and northern Maine. And then that goes out, and then we get the model on this run doesn't show a whole lot of, shows less amplitude with this next trough. I don't know if that's right, but it does have a big high building in southeastern Canada with northeast winds. So this is definitely going to be chilly when we get that. If this plays out this way with this low coming through, because the European's a little different. We'll take a look at that. And then this high goes, Joe, into Quebec, and it's got some kind of low that comes out of Texas and runs up into Tennessee. Actually shows some snow next Wednesday night in northern Pennsylvania, southern New York, and just north of you. The low goes into eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, redevelops off the New Jersey coast, and then goes out to the east. And that might be responding to some of that negative NAO that we got that's going to be around for next week. And then after that, it's sort of uncertain in my mind. You've got cold air that comes in behind it. Then the high goes out, and then there's not a whole lot of cold air around in the country until another storm that it takes to the Great Lakes, and then it sort of gets a little colder behind it. And I don't know. It's a little it's murky. I think beyond this weekend, I think it's a little murky as to where we're going with all of this. And then when you look at the European, which sort of was a bit different here, this was the European from earlier today. Same idea. I mean, nothing is different as far as tonight, and tomorrow are concerned. Same thing with the coastal low. Goodbye. And then, of course, the high gets offshore. The weekend looks fine. One thing both models show, Joe, is the fact that they don't show any rain this weekend. So this may finally break that rainy winning streak or losing streak that we've had. Monday, it's got a low going up into Canada. And then a cold front that approaches with that. The second low behind it is in western Pennsylvania. And then it just sort of, center jumps over New York City. And then suddenly it's in East Cape Cod Wednesday morning. And then it's got another, I don't know, it's just really weird. It's got lower pressures in the Western Lakes. It's got a frontal boundary like we have right now that's running from just south of New York City, southwest down into the southeastern part, and then there's this big upper trough that's digging down into the western Great Lakes. I mean, I saw this upper air on the European where it's got this deep cutoff that suddenly dives down into Wisconsin and Iowa. I mean, I looked at this and I thought, boy, this would be great if this was January or even December. That's not a shabby looking upper air feature that the European has, but again, the models are sort of all over the place with the long range. I don't know how you see. I mean, look at the GFS; it's completely flat for the same time frame with nothing. And if you look at the Canadian puts all its eggs on the trough that it's got a more amplified trough for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, which takes a storm up into eastern Canada with a strong cold front that goes by and some heavy rains ahead of it. I don't know what to make of it, quite frankly.
Everything is moving too quick. It's a very progressive pattern, and when things move too fast, even the supercomputers are having trouble in pinning down things like intensity and especially timing. So when you're trying to go, let's say, beyond 4 or 5 days, it sometimes turns out to be a hapless or a hopeless cause, because that tomorrow and the next day is probably going to be different than what you're looking at right now.
And the NAO is going to be negative, which is adds another variable to the equation, because models a lot of times when you've got a negative NAO love to show lows going out to the west. And hooking up to the Great Lakes, and then then the runs start coming in as you get closer, and that NAO has more of an influence on what the model output is, and you start seeing things going further south, further south, further south. I don't know if that's the case this time around, but it's just kind of just sort of on my mind with all of this, this blockiness. You've got some amplitude that you're dealing with, so. Yeah, very, very confusing. And with respect to the polar vortex, I thought this might be a good idea. It might be a good idea to take a look at this. It's not especially strong. It's not that tight little ball. In fact, right now it's fairly stretched out. It almost looks like it. Back about a week or so ago, the models were forecasting this to split this past weekend, which it was trying to do, but it didn't do it. But it still has a sort of stretched out look to it. And as we go forward, the vortex is kind of sitting in northern Canada, northern Greenland. See if it migrates. Yeah, it kind of migrates back out over the Arctic, but then it sort of pivots around. So as long as you see this, as long as the polar vortex in the upper atmosphere, as long as it doesn't get wrapped up like a tight little ball, if it's in this sort of stretchy, it doesn't have to split, but if it stays on the weakish side and it's constantly ebbing and flowing and stretching back and forth, where you sort of have troughing coming down into Canada, it leads to, I think, a what could be an overall colder look in the longer term. I'm not 100% sure of that, but or sold on that, but it's certainly, in the past when we've had vortexes that get stretched out, usually it's reflected in the lower levels with some sort of volatility. So, we're kind of in watch mode here, Joe. Just over the next month, it's just like, let's see how things are evolving, how are they playing out, and then we go from there.
Yeah, it's much better when it's when the polar vortex is stretched out, or more flexible, if you will, because when it gets into a tight little ball, you're right, Joe. It's kind of like you're putting the cap on a bottle of club soda. I mean,
Yeah.
you could shake it all. You could shake it all you want, but ain't nothing that's going to come out until you release the cap, or until the vortex again becomes larger and stretchier and more flexible, if you will.
The Hurricane Center is still watching this disturbed weather in the Caribbean. They said that earlier today it was actually becoming less organized, and tonight on their 8 o'clock discussion, they say it remains disorganized. I don't know what's going to come out of this. The GFS, and that's another thing. The GFS has been red flagging the stuff there for a long time now. The European is not there. I mean, the European does show that there's wave action in the Caribbean, but it doesn't do anything with it. So and again, when the models are spinning up tropical systems, they're going to impact what's going on across North America in one, either some slightly, or in some cases, like we saw last week with Tammy offshore, reinforcing that big ridge. Um, you know, so it's important that the models get this right. So if there's nothing there, then you have to wonder whether, is the GFS reacting by doing what it's doing because it's got the tropical system there or not? I don't know. I mean,
This is the way the season began. If you remember, we kept seeing the GFS promoting tropical cyclones
right.
many days in advance, and it just kept doing that. And the European didn't see much of anything. We had to wait until literally end of July or August before they both ended up on the same page in terms of tropical activity. Now we're coming to the end of the tropical season, and while the European is sort of backing away now, backing off like it did the very beginning of the season, the GFS once again is highlighting and promoting and saying, "Oh, you got to look here, you got to look at 5 days from now, 6 days, and hardly anything happens." So maybe this is how it's going to be from now through the end of November.
Well, yeah, that sums it up, I think.
And I've seen a lot of people on the chat board, Joe, complaining about that. I'm getting annoyed too, is that we're getting so many of these advertisements. I mean, I had to wait. I can't, and you can't do anything. New York Presbyterian Hospital, and it's an ad that runs for 20 seconds, and you have to wait until the 20-second scroll line gets by, and then after that they have another one, but that one you have to only wait 5 seconds. It's getting really
it's not my doing. This is what YouTube does. So it's not my doing.
Do they do that? They must do that on websites and YouTube shows that they know have large audiences or faithful audiences, and they say, "Oh no, we can jam a few ads onto this, site because we know people."
No, I know, and I can understand that. I understand the frustration. My my understanding is that they're only supposed to come on like every 30 minutes. You're supposed to, you get one after 30 minutes,
What I'm saying
but
is that it
get
might be
one,
actually,
just one.
it
Yeah,
may actually be something, like we should be happy that it's happening because, you know, that they're doing this to us because they know that a lot of people are looking at us, be either on the chat board or lurkers, as opposed to a site that gets no audience whatsoever. And say, well, we're not going to bother, putting ads on this, you know,
yeah.
site. Well, anyway,
Anyway, all right, let's do Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
surely we've got what the last five on Friends.
Yeah. So last five on Friends here. So you Friends fans, are you ready? The last word of the whole series was spoken by Chandler. What was that word? The last word of the whole series was spoken by Chandler. What was the word? And by the way, if you've got YouTube, if you get YouTube Premium, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. That's a personal choice. But if you get YouTube Premium, you don't get ads. So there's that. Um, the last word of the whole series.
And I don't even know who Chandler is because I never really watched the show.
No, I didn't either. Uh, Anybody? I know there's a delay there we go. Christinapedia finally is getting it. Okay, what was no, let's go was not the last word. Word singular. Um, let's see. Frank Scalera, come on. Yes, let's do this. Nope, it's one word. One word was the last word. Anybody? Now the chat board's kind of stopped. The
I
end?
presume.
No.
I
Bye?
presume.
No. Latex Dream says bye. Christinapedia says the end. Frank Scalera said, let's do this. And Johnny Quest gets it. The last word was where. Where. Where.
And I'm presuming that Chandler. Again, I don't know, but I'm going to make the assumption that Chandler was the character that was played by Matthew Perry, who just passed away, right? Or is it?
I don't know.
I don't know
I think
either.
so. I think so.
Yeah.
What does Chandler's mother do for a living? What was Chandler's mother? What did Chandler's mother do for a living? Tyler Fienga says he never watched the show. Um, and neither did Leon Probitsky. Okay, so we're on to Chandler's mother. All right, and what she did for a living.
Was her name Serena? And was she played by Elizabeth Montgomery?
Right, exactly. All right, guys, come on. I need answers. I don't know why. I have it set up where we're supposed to be like couple of seconds. I don't know if there's a delay, but they're on a whole different conversation. Nurse says Keith James II. No, that is not. Cook says Fyodor Ledkovsky. No, not a cook, not a nurse, not a meteorologist, John Melander, not a lounge singer, Mark Franz. No, no, nope, no guesses. Even Christinapedia doesn't know.
She
She works for the government. No. She was a Vegas stripper. No. Doctor, cook, a writer. Matthew, how you're on the right track. She was a writer. What kind of books did she write, Matthew? See if you can figure it out. Northern Grace Cinema. No, the answer was Matthew Howe's got, he's close. A writer. In fact, not to prolong this agony, Matthew Howe, a novelist. She wrote, yes, a romance novelist. She wrote romance novels. Why is Chandler relocated to Tulsa for his job? Why is he relocated to Tulsa?
he was a Sooners fan.
Does Oklahoma play out of Tulsa? I don't think so. I don't think the University of Oklahoma is in Tulsa. All right, the question again is why is Chandler relocated to Tulsa for his job? And Rich Rothmansky says, no idea. And then again, I don't care. I guess, I guess there aren't as many romance novels are still, okay, you know what? Um, this isn't working, guys. You're not participating. So we're going to make this one the last question. Yes, Shades of Grey, Chuck Cardillo. Nice. All right, so the answer is that he fell asleep. Chandler was relocated for his job because he fell asleep in a meeting. All right. So anyhow, all right. So we're done with this, and we're done with the show tonight too. Isn't that lovely?
Isn't that lovely? Yes.
All right. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code I want a weather station, and if you do, you'll get
10% off.
All right. So
And
we'll go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
I'm just going to say thank you to the chairman again, and also to, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Anup Patel Vlogs for generous contributions tonight on Super Chat. So thank you so much, you guys.
Okay. So we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35.